Check, check. Mic check. It's storming out here. Oof. Fixing the bangs. They're getting a little long, y'all. Hi, Hanan. Thank you for joining. Just making a couple adjustments here. Oh man, it is storming outside over here on the East Coast. Hi, Marian. Thank you. Thank you for joining, being so punctual, y'all. Appreciate it. Hi, Prime Minister. Hi. Wow. Guys, do I have anything on my teeth? I'm always nervous that it's going to happen. I am really excited to talk to Lisa today, and if you guys have any questions for her, she's just such a powerhouse. I feel like she will have some good advice for all of us right now. Where's everyone tuning in from? Anyone? Anyone on the East Coast? Just me? Cool. Oh man, I just saw a huge lightning bolt go across the sky. It is massively storming. Dubai, wow. Oops. And Christina, Marianne. What is the time in Dubai right now? The UK? Wow. This is incredible, guys. I have a party on the top and a not party on the bottom, like sweatpants. Oh, Lisa's here, guys. Are you ready? Let's do this. Wave and join. Let's connect her now. You guys ready for it? We're connecting. The anticipation.
Hello!
Yay! Hi, Lisa!
How's it going, sweetie?
Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous and so excited to see you.
Oh, you're so cute. I actually, as I was trying to join, I heard you say something about the top and the bottom. What were you saying?
I was saying that I have a party on the top, but sweatpants on the bottom.
Dude, I love that so much. I've been doing that so often, like making sure on the top half I look presentable and then sweatpants.
I was like, let me show up for Lisa. Let me not, wear my usual sweatshirt.
My girl. So how's it all going? I'm super excited.
I'm so excited too. Thank you for making time to do this. I so
Of
appreciate it.
course.
It's storming out here. There's like a massive thunderstorm going on.
Really?
Yeah.
I actually was a little concerned that here the weather's getting nice, and I just worry that will be quite enticing for a lot of people to want to go back outside. I think as much as it was weird that LA was raining so much,
Yeah.
I think it probably was at a good time. So.
Oh, geez. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm not very good at IG, and I ended up clicking some. Ah, there it is. All right. Sorry about that. I was like half of the image was covered. I'm doing good. Thank you, sweetie. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah. Just
You
super pumped.
you hesitated there.
Oh, it's more so like the outside is crazy right now. It's literally like lightning, thunder, darkness.
Whoa.
So it's kind of like, oh, what is going on? But internally, I am very excited to talk to you.
Me too.
So I've been asking people what they've been doing to ground themselves lately, because I feel like there's just so much noise going on right now, and we're all like flipping through feelings of anxiety, and I just wonder, what is your practice for grounding yourself every day?
Yeah, I think that I have tried to stay true to what usually grounds me because I'm just a creature of habit, and I've spent so many years trying to get structured, stay focused. And so I was just like, well, I've spent all this time accumulating those skill sets. How can I use that for now? And so for me, it just comes back to a goal. It's like the quarantine and the coronavirus isn't going to derail me from my goals. Like that's something I've told to myself. Because I really want to believe that. And so I have to repeat that to myself. And so in order for me to actually believe that and So in order for me to actually then act on it, I just remind myself, like, what am I doing this for? What was my purpose a year ago? And if that has changed, how has it changed? Because I want to acknowledge that change, you know, things have altered over time. But then just tweaking it a little. So for me, like, impact is still massive. I mean, I've just spent, you know, since Qwest Nutrition, the last 4 years developing our studio and building impact theory.
Yeah.
And so that hasn't changed. And so really it's grounding myself on why am I doing it? What is my purpose? What is my mission? Asking myself if that still feels true, because I think that's super important as well. Like, don't feel bad if that's changed, but you need to address it. And
Right.
so for me, it was like the quarantine, everything has just reassured me, like, oh, yes, it is something that I'm still extremely passionate about. And so I just remind myself, and now it's just taken a different path, right? So it's, if I'm used to driving to Vegas, you know, how else can I get there? You know, what is that other way of, what is that other path that I can take to get to that final destination? But my destination hasn't changed for me. So
It's the
that has kept
reminding
me,
yourself.
yeah,
Got that.
exactly.
So speaking of your path and your journey, I want to take it back to the very beginning. And I'm always curious about what you were like as a child and what you dreamed of becoming when you were an adult. I put it in quotes because I feel like I'm still growing. I'm still.
Yeah. Oh, me too, girl. I'm never done. So the funny thing is, when I think back to my childhood, I definitely had massive dreams. I was just, I think, naive enough maybe to be like, well, why can't it come true? Now, I was being told time and time again, your heads are in the clouds. So for me, it was like, I wanted to come to America. I wanted to make movies. I either wanted to be Walt Disney and draw, or I wanted to come and make movies. And my mum told me and broke my heart by telling me that Disney no longer draws and it's all by computer. So that was when I was like, okay, well, I don't want to go down that path. But it was never, even though I was told time and time again, keep your feet on the ground, why your head in the clouds, like, who are you to go to America? Who are you to enter Hollywood? You don't know anybody. I guess I was naive enough to just say, but if I try.
Yeah.
Now the problem is, I don't know if this is a problem, but as a child, it was just part of me. I was just like, even if I didn't know if it was actually going to come true, I still kept dreaming. Now, what happens, I found, is when I went from being that child to getting into adulthood, the dreams get knocked out of you. And, you know, imagination just, you know, gets knocked out of you, because all you keep hearing is, how are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to keep the roof over your head? And so that becomes a real factor on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
And so for me, my dream, even though it felt very real, it over time, very, very slowly altered, because I had so much external advice and noise telling me it wasn't going to be possible. And so when I came to America, it was purely, I was here to, you know, study for 2 months. I met my husband, who back then was just like a hot guy, and I was like, this is great. I'll just have like this awesome summer fling with this guy, and I'll have this amazing story to tell when I'm 90 years old, and, you know, on my deathbed I can kind of say, yes, I had some fun. Not expecting to fall in love with him, and then, you know,
Right.
19 years later, here we are. But yeah, I just think that as a kid I had the imagination, and that's something, as you can kind of even see behind me now, I
I see it.
surround myself with things that allow me to hold on to my imagination and my creativity, because I didn't see it dissipate. Like, looking back now, I go, yeah, I remember being really ambitious and really big dreams. And then I
Yeah.
also remember being like, okay, so you're going to be, you know, a stay-at-home wife and support your husband. So I don't remember that transition. And so for me, that's actually scary. I don't remember how, it's like that, you know, they call it, what is it, the slow water torture, right? Where it's like, over time, like, one drop of water on your forehead is no big deal. But you do that, you know, 50,000 times, it becomes like, you know, to your core, the irritation. So for me, it's, when I look at how I went from this child that had a massive inspiration and creativity, and then I lost it, now I'm looking back saying, what happened? And when I go back and say what happened, I'm like, okay, it happened slowly. So
Mm-hmm.
in order for me not to fall into that trap again, what can I do now to pour the fuel on my fire of imagination every single day? And that is having, you know, comic books, characters, empowering symbols. I have the Wonder Woman symbol around my neck, right? Like I drink from my Wonder Woman cup. It's
Pink hair.
the pink hair. Exactly. Like I make sure that I every day do something to fuel that imagination.
Mm-hmm. So what was kind of the wake-up call for you from being the stay-at-home supportive wife, following that role, to waking up to who you are now?
Yeah, so what I was brought up Greek Orthodox. So even though I had these big dreams and, you know, really wanted to achieve massive things, at the back of my mind, I was always told you're gonna be a stay-at-home wife and you're gonna be a supportive to your husband and a mother. Now, if that's what people want, it can be the most beautiful thing
Yeah.
ever. Like if people choose it. So I always want to preface it because I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that if that's
Right.
what you want. I was just told, and it became an assumption of that is who I was going to be,
Mm.
and almost like I didn't have a say in it. And so once I got married, even though I had these dreams, Tom and I had made a pact. We wanted to make movies. I ended up going to film school and he went to USC. So our dream was to make these big films. And we'd worked in the film industry. I did some photography and hated it. I was stepped on by directors. I was verbally abused by actors. I mean, it just was not a nice scene. And
Mm-hmm.
so my entire life, I was like, I want to be in movies. I finally got a job on a film set and I'm like, I hate this. That was hard, right? Where you dream
Yeah.
so big. I finally got a, you know, a job on a set and I was literally like beyond excited. And after day, I was like, this isn't what I'd imagined it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to reassess. I said, look, you don't go down a path just because you've spent 15 years going down that path. Like, it
Right.
doesn't make sense to, you know, like the phrase, what is it? Like pot committed. Like, I just think that's actually a terrible phrase because you can keep going down that path,
Mm-hmm.
but now you're going deeper and deeper into it. At some point, when are you going to turn around?
Right.
And so for me, I was like, I dreamt all my life to be in this industry and now I hate it. So I have a choice. I have a choice to either succumb to it and adapt to that industry, or
Mm-hmm.
say no, these are my bright lines and these are my boundaries and I will not cross those for anybody. And that's what I did. And so I said, if this is what filmmaking is, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want any part of it. I was like, I'd rather walk away than have someone disrespect me or me being forced to disrespect somebody to take a step up. That's not the human being and the person I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So in those moments, Tom and I sat down and we said, what is the real, like, how do we actually make movies? Not the, like, oh, it'd be fun. Like, what's the real BS? The no
Right.
BS answer to making it in the industry. And so we said, okay, right now you're coming to the industry with your hand out. I need a job. I need money to make a film. But instead, what if we control the resources because then we can control the art? Now, back then it was like, oh, we'll just make some money. That should be pretty easy, right? What's being an entrepreneur? And back then we didn't even have that word.
Right.
So that was a kind of a long story to come back to your question, which was then when Tom and I got married, our plan was collectively, we said, okay, we want to make movies. We want to finance the movies ourselves, so we're going to go out and make the money. So
Mm-hmm.
Tom was going to go out every day and make money. We looked at entrepreneurs in that era, and we were looking like Steve Jobs, and we're like, how does Steve Jobs live his life? Because he's not doing too shabby, right? Like, he's pretty damn successful.
Yes.
So look at the amazing people that you admire and look at how they live their lives. So we looked at Steve Jobs and we're like, okay, what does his everyday look like? And you would notice he'd always wear black. Well,
Mm-hmm.
if you read up more about why the man always wears black is because you only have a certain amount of decisions you can make in a day. And for him,
Right.
deciding what he was going to wear in the morning was a waste of brain power. And I was like, oh, that's like the no BS, how do you actually succeed? So I was like, he's got something to this. So Tom and I decided I was going to stay at home. I was going to be the decision maker on everything else except for business.
Mm.
So bills, household decisions, family, vacation, finances, food, everything I was going to decide. And he was literally only going to focus on work. Now, because of that, what happened was I ended up slipping into the wife role. So the wife role became, I was supporting my husband, I was cooking food for him, I was doing the ironing, I was washing clothes, I was paying bills. And we had decided, okay, that was what I was going to do. And we planned, it's going to be for a year. All right, you know what? I can suck it up for a year, Lisa.
Yeah.
Well, of course, that year turns into 8 years.
Wow.
So for a year where I had a very specific purpose, I'm supporting, it's a couple's goal. We're going to make movies. I'm going to suck it up. I'm going to bake. I'm going to cook. I freaking hate doing all that, but I'm going to do it because Lisa, it's for a year and you've told yourself what you're going to do, you know, in order to get your goal. I'm going to, you know, pull my half of the agreement. So he was going to work every day. So I'm going to, you know, make sure that I fulfill my half. And what I didn't realize was looking back at my culture, looking back at what I've been told from the age of, you know, basically birth. My mom gave up her career so that she could be a stay-at-home wife. My grandmother didn't even get an education because the Greeks back then definitely thought, well, you don't need an education if you're just going to be a stay-at-home wife. So I saw this growing up year after year. I get the opportunity to feel like I'm bringing, you know, like value to the table, which I was bringing. But that year turned into 8. My mindset ended up turning into, this is my position. This is what I'm doing it for. I'm only helping my husband. And year after year, I slipped further and further into that state. And so kind of going back around to your question, it was purely by accident that I ended up in the position I am now. So I was supporting my husband. I just kind of accepted it. I thought, we're going to have kids soon. We just need to bear with the finances right now because we put everything on the line to start Qwest. And so my husband came home and he's like, babe, do you mind just shipping protein bars from our living room floor? Do you mind just like weighing peanut butter from our, you know, little home scales? Do you mind just helping out? Because he had a full-time job. And so him and his business partners, they had planned Qwest, and I was basically, I'm here to support. Right. And so they were doing their full-time job. On the weekends, we were making protein bars with rolling pins and knives. And during the week, while they were all at work, I was shipping the bars. And so again, I was like, I'm just helping my husband because what is my belief? I'm a great supportive wife, right? At this point. So I'm like, of course, I'm going to support my husband. We're sending bars out. Now, what I didn't anticipate, and none of us anticipated, was that our company would grow at 57,000%.
My God.
So I went from shipping 2 or 3 protein bars from my living room floor and being the leader, quote unquote, of 2 puppies, 2 dogs, to within 2 years, I ended up running our retirement fulfillment center. We were shipping $80 million worth of inventory, and I had 40 employees underneath me in just my department alone. And the driving force in that first year was survive. It was stay afloat. Your house is on the line. Wow. Your husband's relying on you. Like, I really value identity. Like, I really value it. And so my identity was, I'm freaking here to support my husband. Come hell or high water, I'm going to do what it takes so that he feels like he has a partner in this. And because I was so hell-bent on that, the first year of going from shipping bars to having my first employee, to having to go to a fulfillment center, to figuring out what a pallet was, I had no idea what a pallet was, to figure out imports and exports, all of that was literally, I have to learn something. And if I don't, I will lose my house. And if I don't, I fail my husband. Wow. And so that driving force was find it out, get on the phone to UPS, figure out who I can speak to, who can I give free protein bars to so I can pick their brain. I would go to the UPS store, and I literally would like take them candy because I would ask them so many questions on how to ship things. They ended up calling me the candy lady because I would go to Costco because I realized they actually didn't like protein bars. So I'd go to Costco, I would buy the big bags of the chocolates, and every couple of days I would take a little Ziploc bag in, and I'd be like, here you go, guys. Oh, quick one question. And so I just had to figure out, because to me, failure wasn't an option. And when you're put in those dire straits, which I'm sure, right? Like, let's talk about the way the world is right now. It's like when you're put in these situations that it is it is not an accident that more entrepreneur billionaires come out of the recession, because they are forced to think outside the box, because they are forced to be challenged, because who I was when I first started Qwest was not who I was a year later. I had to learn. I had to cultivate skills. I had to face the reality that I wasn't good at a lot of things. I had to, lick my wounds and not think about my ego to get to that next step. Like all of that self-assessment and growth as internally, as well as learning the skills externally, was massive for me. And after the year, because it was such a transformation, I was like, I kind of like this. I started to feel good about myself again, because I was saying I wasn't achieving something because someone else was helping me. I wasn't doing something because my husband helped me or my family helped me. I was in a situation where I didn't know something and I went and freaking figured it out. And I started to feel good about myself. And I started to then look inwards and say, well, what else can you do, Lisa? What else do you not believe that you're capable of? And let's see if you can do it. So the first year of just struggling, like get through it, evolved into a challenge for myself. Then it started to evolve into, well, who does Lisa actually want to be? Because I hadn't asked myself that in 9 years at that point. So after that 9 years, I was like, well, who do I actually want to be? Like, what do I actually want in life? Do I actually want children? Or have I just felt and said that I want children because I slipped into a predetermined life for myself that, had been given to me at birth?
Right.
And so I know I was hoping, I'm not very good at short answers, but that was hopefully, it was definitely a long process, but it came down to self-assessment. And then looking nakedly at your inadequacies and making changes.
So how long did you build the company, Qwest?
Qwest, we officially, I think, signed it up in 2010.
Okay.
In 2014, I believe, we were announced as the second fastest growing company in North America. In 2015, I believe we were $1 billion company. So we went from 0 to $1 billion in 5 years.
Wow.
And then Tom and I transitioned from Qwest. So I went from our fulfillment center to building it out. It was huge. I was so proud of it. But again, going back to assessment, I realized I became miserable again. So it was like I was striving, I was learning. And then after a while, I was like, I don't want to be in a hairnet and sneakers my whole life. I don't want to be in a fulfillment center like that. It just wasn't my dream or passion. So I'd proved to myself that I could do it, but I had to reassess again if that was really where I should end up, because I didn't want what had happened for 8 years where I was stuck in, and I didn't ask myself the question, are you happy? Like I didn't even ask myself that.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing was, after 2 years in fulfillment, I asked myself the question and I was like, no, this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life. Okay, Lisa, what is a no bullshit? What do you actually want to do in your life? And the answer came back to, I want to be back in film. Like my heart is still in the creative side of it.
Right.
And so at the time, I sat down with Tom and our CMO and I was like, guys, I don't want to be in shipping anymore. I want to, start. I see that we're doing these 15. Do you remember the 15-second videos on Instagram?
Yes.
Like you actually had to do them live. You couldn't even edit them. So it was like you had to do 15 seconds.
On the cuff.
Off the cuff. And there was no stories. And so we were doing a bit of that and we were seeing some success. And because we were one of the very first companies that was using Facebook, that was using Instagram as a way to communicate and market, we were growing rather quickly. So I was like, I kind of like what you guys are doing. And so I sat down with them and the CMO said, yes, we actually do want to start doing more content. So I transitioned over to that, and then I built out our studio. So our studio, that took me another 2 or 3 years to build out. I had producers and editors and writers, and we were creating cooking shows with blogger Lattes, Cassie Ho. We were doing commercials. We were renting out schools. I mean, it was like a freaking dream come true from a content standpoint. But then again, I started to ask myself, Lisa, make sure that you're still happy. And that then made me realize, okay, I was doing what I loved. I was creating content, but the content I was doing now wasn't creating massive impact. It was selling product. Yeah, it was great. It was selling. It was doing well for the business. But
Yeah.
then I started to realize my heart really was in making a difference, like actually impacting people. So
Hmm.
with the bar at the beginning, we could tell because I was so, there was like four of us. We're like answering phones ourselves and like emailing customers back ourselves.
Yeah.
And so when you're in the weeds like that, you really see how you're impacting people. And so I started to have, women reach out, thanking us for the protein bars, like the anorexic community. Like I didn't even think about that, but they were
Huh.
reaching out saying, because of your bar, I became okay with calories again. Like your protein bar
Wow.
was the first thing that allowed me to transition into panicking about calories to then eating again. And so like I was feeling on a daily basis that everything I was doing when I was struggling to figure out shipping, I would remind myself, but Lisa, what about those anorexics or the mothers there's this mother who had a child who was diabetic. And she
Mm.
said, I would just want to thank you because my kid couldn't eat food. I felt like a terrible mother because he couldn't eat when he would go to birthday parties. He couldn't eat the cakes. He couldn't eat the school and the food, all the kids, what they were eating.
Yeah.
And so she's like, but now my kids can eat Qwest bars. And now I feel like a better mother because now I can say yes to my son. And so I was like, oh my God, like that gets to the core of
Right.
who I am. And so
Right.
when I start to so going back to then when I was creating our media studio, I had lost touch with that.
Hmm.
I had lost touch with the daily reminder of why I was working and what I was doing it for. And so we were creating content. My husband had a show. It was called Inside Qwest. And so we said, hey, like, it's amazing being able to affect people with the mind, with their body, with
Hmm.
Qwest bars. But what about people who have low self-esteem or anxiety or depression and don't have the energy or the mindset to go to a gym, to pick up a healthy bar?
Hmm.
What do you do about those people? Somebody like my own mother, God bless her, but like the more and more successful Qwest was getting, the more and more overweight she was getting. And when I started asking her, mom, like, oh, here's some Qwest bars. I'll hire you a free chef. Every time she kept coming back to, because she was like losing her breath as she was going upstairs. Like she was severely overweight
Hmm.
at that time. And so I just kept asking her, mom, like, why don't you try a protein bar? Try this. And she just said, I can't, I'm too old. And that's when it was like, mindset is everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like literally just because she believed she couldn't was why she wouldn't try. And so here we were making content called Inside Qwest where my husband was talking about mindset, but that wasn't where all our heart, time, and dedication was going.
Hmm.
And the reality is when you have a company that grew as quickly as Qwest and you have the financial freedom, then it becomes what do you actually want to do with your life? And if you don't agree with your partners, then just walk away. And so for us, it was like Tom's business partners still were very much all about the body. And over time, Tom and I started to realize that it really was also about the mind. And you can't have one without the other. And so we were like, okay, well, thankfully we have great success. So let's take the show, let's rebrand it, let's spin it off, and let's just do a new startup. And so that's exactly what we did. And we started Impact Theory about 3.5 years ago now,
Wow.
and we're almost at 5 million people in our ecosystem. And all we do all day, every day is create content. And I love it. I wake up every day with passion.
That is amazing. So I was looking at Impact Theory and looking at the past interviews that you've done too, and you've interviewed so many very successful people in their respective fields. And so what I was wondering is there a common thread between all of these people, even though they're working in completely different industries?
Yes. All except I think one person that I can think of that I interviewed has given me these answers. They were always scared before they tried.
Ooh.
So that was one where it's like every single successful woman I've ever interviewed or had the pleasure to meet has always been fearful of something before they got to the success.
Hmm.
And then there's actually a second one is that they always fell on their face at some point. So it's like, okay, that's amazing news because
Yeah.
if all these successful women fear something and have fallen on their face before they succeeded, that
Yeah.
is the best news I could possibly have. Because for someone like me who has the fear, great. I'm like all these other successful women. They've got the fear too. So it reassures me. It doesn't scare me. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I fail, because I will fail at some point, I will fail time and time again. So
Mm-hmm.
when I do, I just remind myself, okay, well, this is what you're supposed to do. All greats have to fail to learn, to pick themselves back up and move on. So I use that as a reassurance for myself.
Right. Someone just actually asked, how do you get over the fear to begin with?
For me, I go back down to being so realistic about what that fear is. So, as an example, I was asked to do public speaking about a year ago now. I'd never publicly spoke before. I've done interviews and things like that, but standing on stage is a whole
Different. It's
different
different.
ball. It is completely different. So, and so when I was asked, I was shit scared. Like I was so petrified. And so I just broke it down. Okay, what is really this fear? Like, what are you actually scared about? Don't abstract it. Bring it back to reality. What are
Mm-hmm.
you actually scared about? Okay, I'm scared that I tank, that I get up there and I freeze, right? That's what everyone's scared. Okay, I get up there and I freeze. Okay, we'll follow that thought through. And what, Lisa? And I would be very embarrassed. Okay, and what? And when I go home, I will feel shitty about myself. Okay, and what? Right? It was like, you know that this too shall pass. So when I go back through all the things that I'm scared about, then I go to what is the best thing that can happen, right? So addressing the fear, but then going, okay, but what's that flip side? But you have to ask yourself that question. But what is the best thing that can happen? Okay, best thing that can happen is I go on there and I crush it.
Yeah.
Or I go and then I realize this is something that I actually love doing that I never considered doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are amazing scenarios. So when I'm on my deathbed, which one am I going to look back at and wish that I had done? Am I
Right.
going to, on my deathbed, and I know it's really cliche, but I actually, like, I embody this. I don't just think, like, I really do. Okay, on my deathbed, I'm lying there. You've got, like, your last 10 breaths. Am I going to be like, I'm glad I didn't embarrass myself on that stage? But what if I got on the stage, realized that was my calling, and then became the next Tony Robbins?
Right. Right.
So the fear every single time. So another fear I'll just tell you quickly is when my husband came home and he's like, babe, we're going to start a new company. It's a protein bar company. Oh, and by the way, if it doesn't succeed, we lose the house. Now, at this point, me and my husband had started 5, 6 other companies. We had a photography
Oh,
company.
I didn't
I had
know
a web.
that.
Yeah, I had a photography company. I had a website design company. We had a domain company. We were buying domains and trying to sell them. Like we were like trying to figure out how to make money so we could make movies. And so when he came home and he said, we're making these protein bars, it wasn't like I was like, well, of course we're going to succeed. Like every ounce of my being had said, you keep failing. Right? So in that situation, I broke it down. The realistic. Okay, Lisa, what are you actually fearful of? Like, what is the worst case scenario that you cannot live with if we lose the house? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I will not. I know a lot of people do, but for me, I'm just, being honest. I don't want to live on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to live on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's your worst fear, will it actually happen? Okay, the truth is no. I have friends, I have family. If I had to reach out, I wouldn't want to, but if I had to reach out to my family to ask for a loan, I could. Like there are things that we identify as I wouldn't want to do it, so we take it off the table.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is that the worst case scenario is if I lost my house, I wouldn't go homeless because I could ask friends and family to sleep on a couch, to loan me money. And then the food, I don't want to starve to death. So, okay, going back to, is that actually going to happen? No, the truth is that wouldn't actually happen. So but then what's the best case scenario? It becomes $1 billion company,
Right.
right? And so it's like everyone in hindsight loves to hear the story of the before and after, but
Mm-hmm.
anyone watching right now, what is that thing that it's just like, you don't know if you're going to succeed or not. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
no guarantee. There's no guarantee Qwest was going to succeed. There's no guarantee Impact Theory was going to succeed. But
Mm-hmm.
why did it? And well, actually, I won't actually answer that question. Why did it? I will say that why did we keep going? Because we
Right.
believed in what we were doing. And so if it never succeeds, I would have still been glad that I did it because I believed in the action. So it's like there's no guarantee for success. So you may as well enjoy the journey. So right now, what is that journey you're on? And do you love the journey because no one's going to guarantee the end result. So for me, and I kind of went off tangent here, but going back to the fear thing, for me, you know, I bring it to reality. I say, what's the worst case scenario? Keeping my house or never taking a chance, or I fell in love with my husband because he's ambitious. I fell in love with my husband because of his drive, because of his crazy ideas. So who am I to have married him and then to say, no, 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 all the things that I fell in love with you over, I'm now going to shrink that down because I want a house. Like that wouldn't sit well with me. So going back to then, who do I really want to be? It was very important for me to say, okay, with all this fear that I may have, I refuse to let the fear stop me from being the person I want to be. And so that's kind of how I dissect it.
Yeah. So on the flip side of that, when you're talking about failure, is there any failure, I'm going to put that in quotes too, that sticks out in your mind that really helped you learn? It was so hard at the time, but in hindsight, it really helped shape who you are now.
There were so many failures that I'm trying to think of one that, and you saying with the company or with with me personally?
Either. I think I'm thinking more personally for you, when you felt like, oh, this might be my rock bottom. Like, how do I get back up from this? You know?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was almost a daily feeling when we first started Qwest, because I literally had no idea what I was doing. I knew how to put a stamp on an envelope. Like that was the extent of my knowledge of shipping. And so every day where it's like, oh, so we had a Justin Bieber's cousin or something was obsessed with our product. And so he was like, hey, I'm on tour with Justin Bieber. Can you send us some product? And they were somewhere like in the, they were like in, oh God, Dubai or somewhere. They were like somewhere in Dubai. It was like somewhere where it was very difficult to just ship product, right? It wasn't like you were shipping to England. They had like a lot of immigration laws and rules and things like that. And so now everyone's looking at me going, this could change our company. But Lisa, you got to get the balls to him. And so in that moment, I was like, oh crap, I better come through. Like, I have no idea how to ship to Dubai. I have no clue, but I'm going to figure it out. And so what did I do? I got on the phone to our shipping coordinator. They're like, yeah, no, sorry, you can't overnight to Dubai. And I was like, that answer doesn't sit well with me. Can I speak to your manager? And so they put me on the phone to the manager, and they're like, yeah, there's no one can actually do it, because that means you're going to have to be on the phone in the middle of the night because of the time difference. I'm like, okay, cool. So you guys are going to be on the phone in the middle of the night then? And they're like, no. And I was like, well, why not? I pay for your services. And they were like, well, that's not our normal protocol. And I said, well, can you bring up our account? Because you can see how much business we do with you. Now, inside, I'm petrified. I'm like, oh my God, Lisa, you've got no right to ask someone to stay up in the middle of the night and ship your product. Like, you've got no right to do that. But I was like, but the company's depending on me. Like, this could be, like, if Justin Bieber posts one photo of him with our protein bar, it changes your business overnight.
Right.
Over a freaking night. So I was like panicking. So I had no right to ask these people. So I said, hey, well, you know, obviously I was very, very polite, but I wasn't showing weakness. And that's a freaking key. Like, in that moment, I was like, you can't show weakness, Lisa, because they're just going to say no. And so I understand that they've been taught, they've got a script that they run by, right? Like, as a position, it's like, look, I'm supposed to say no when you get to this point, and that's it. So I'm like, okay, I know that. They don't have permission to say yes. So let me get to the person that has permission to say yes. And so I just kept on asking to get to that person. I eventually got to that person and I said, look, can you bring up our account? We've been with you guys for 2 years. We've had other people, FedEx reaches out to us a lot. Look at how much money we spend with you guys on a monthly basis. Look at how quickly we're growing. If you want our business for the next year, you got to help me out here. I was like, I'll send you free product for yourself. I so appreciate you doing me a favor. Like, I was very sweet and over the top. But I didn't take no for an answer. And now it comes back to the fact that we ended up getting the bars there and he left the hotel.
Oh no.
So that's where the failure comes in. So it's like, I learned a lesson that when under pressure, I wouldn't accept no for an answer. And I thought outside of the box in order to get what I wanted. Now, the failure was he didn't even freaking receive them. And so I ended up spending a hell of a lot of time, energy, and resources trying to get it to them. But I learned a lesson, and I was like, wow, Lisa, you just learned something about yourself. Instead of being bummed or kicking yourself that like he'd left the hotel before he got there, you still got it there on time. Like, but besides
Yeah.
all odds, everyone told you it wasn't possible. I still got it there. And so I remind myself that when there's a roadblock, it is up to me if I stop or if I take a sledgehammer and freaking just smash the hell out of it, you know, because on the other side, even if you don't get what you want, there's a lesson there. And so
Right.
every failure, it is all about perspective. And so I tell myself, what did you learn? Because I've got a very loud negative voice. And so the negative voice can easily dwarf all the things that I'm even saying to you now. So I have to do it on a daily basis to remind myself of what I'm capable of, and that the voices, I have to shut that voice down.
That's so surprising for me, you know, because like looking at you, your feed, the things that you post and share, I can't imagine you having that negative voice. But to know that that's something that you struggle with every single day, it just makes you even more human,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know?
and I think that that's really important. That's why I really do like to talk about it a lot, because I've worked so hard on myself. And
Mhm.
even now, like I beat myself up, of course. I just put strategies, techniques into place so that when it happens, I've got to go to. So perfect example, in fact, the other day, on Saturday, I had there's a bit of coconut ice cream I can eat. So I have health issues, but there's a bit of coconut ice cream I can eat. So I ate some and I loved it. I was like, oh, this is so good. And so I ate more than my stomach probably should have had, because like I started to get stomach cramp. But the next day I woke up and I was like, oh man, like, you know, like my definition has gone a bit. And I literally, in that moment, I was like, you better freaking stop that right now. You
Mhm.
better stop that, because you've been dealing with health issues, Lisa, and you told yourself that you would never judge yourself on your physique in the mirror ever again, because that doesn't define you. And literally, this is the voice, I'm screaming at myself. So it's like I have this like battle between like the voices in my head, where it's
Yeah.
like, you know, or if it's work, like, no, you shouldn't be stopping at this time. Come on, stop being so lazy. And then I have the other voice that shouts like, stop trying to derail me, because if I work to death, I just wear myself out, and then it becomes a massive knock-on effect where I then find it difficult to really show up for my team. And so I'm just like, remind yourself of what's important,
Mhm.
but I
Mhm.
have to do that all the time.
Yeah. You strike me as someone who you seem like a very open book. And so I always wonder, how do you decide between what to share versus what to keep private?
Yeah. So I never used to be open book at all. I was like just to give you an example, my husband, when I first met him when we were dating, he asked me a question. It was something like, you know, how many boyfriends have you had? It was something like that. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to tell you that. Like, I was brought up in a Greek environment that was like, you don't talk about your feelings, you don't talk about your emotions. If you're sad, you keep it in. If you're angry, you either keep it in or you scream at someone. Like, that was just kind of what I saw and what I learned growing up.
Hmm.
And so, in my own evolution, in my own growth, I always thought like, oh, you can't say that, Lisa, because it's going to make you look weak. Like if I have to admit that I have had body issues in the past, oh my God, does that make me weak? If I have to admit that I still, even today, get my B's and my D's mixed up, God, does that mean that you're stupid, Lisa? People are going to respect you less? Like
Hmm.
I really had that negative voice that would keep repeating in my mind. And when my health really deteriorated and I got to the point where I was co-founder of a company that was one of the largest nutrition, considered at the time, one of the largest nutrition companies in the country. We were $1 billion company, and I couldn't eat my own product because my health and my gut issues got so bad. I was like,
Mm.
I can't talk about that. Like, I can't share that. What are people going to think of me that I own a nutrition company and I have digestive issues? So I was the opposite. I was like, keep everything in, Lisa. And I realized that by keeping it in, it was actually making me worse. It was making the voices in my head more negative. I was fueling it, not
Hmm.
actually helping it. And I started to talk just in, you know, to friends, like people that I would meet. It's like, yeah, I actually have some health issues. And the amount of people are like, oh my God, Lisa, thank you so much for sharing that. And I know it's kind of like cliche now, but like it really is true that when you feel like you're helping people, it's like when I'm in a bad mood. In fact, when I'm in a bad mood, the first thing I do is do something for someone else. So
Mm-hmm.
I remember like a couple of months ago, I was in the I can't remember why, something really bad had happened, and I was just in a
Yeah.
terrible mood. And I was like, I'm going to go and make tea and coffee for my team. And I just went and did something nice for someone else, and it just made me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So when I start to realize, okay, all these things that I'm keeping inside that
Oh, connection. Let's see. Uh-oh. It's frozen. Let's see if we can get it back working, guys. Sorry. Oh man. No, I know. I agree with you. I can fix this. I think she's gonna rejoin. Okay, let's do this again. We are rejoining. Thank you for your patience, guys.
Can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Can you?
Oh,
Ah,
there you are. You're
there
back.
it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I was like, what on earth just happened?
I know, same. I was like, oh.
Um, I completely. What was I saying?
We were talking about how you started sharing about your health
Oh yeah.
issues.
So I really think is when you feel like you're helping someone, it just encourages you to do it more. And that's where it came to a point where again, I honestly I asked myself the real questions. I look in the mirror and I'm like, really, Lisa? So I just asked myself, okay, right now, Lisa, the more you're talking about your health issues, the more women you're noticing have health issues,
Mm-hmm.
have digestive issues, have things like that. And so the more I was talking about it, the more people were like, thank you for helping. Thank you for that. And I was like, okay, by me sharing, I'm actually helping people. So the no BS, Lisa, you not sharing is purely for ego.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
right now, me not sharing is purely because I'm worried about being judged. I'm
Right.
worried about if I share this, are people going to think of me as weak? If I share this, are people going to think of me differently? And I was like, okay, well, now just be honest with yourself, Lisa. Like, no judgment, but be honest with yourself. Would you rather be open and share more and help people, or worry about your ego and stay quiet? Now, again, it has to be on no judgment. I'm not necessarily saying like this is terrible, and if anyone chooses to stay quiet for their own ego, shame on you. Like, no, but just don't be, but be honest about why you're making the choice. And so that's what I started to do. I was being honest about what the choice I was making. I was like, okay, right now I'm staying quiet because I don't want people to think of me in a other way except for being like super badass and hardcore and built this business and oh my god, isn't she amazing? And I was like, actually, that doesn't sit with who I want to be. Going back to how I'd said earlier, right? Who is the person I want to be? And now freaking show up as that person. And so I just said, Lisa, I want to be this person who helps people. You know, you just built Qwest and now you're building impact theory, and yet you're still so concerned about your freaking ego that you won't be talking to people and open. And so really that's where I go from, okay, will this piece of information that I am about to share make a difference? Because if it will make a difference, then share it. Screw my own ego. Like that is not the person that I want to be. And so that's really how I end up assessing kind of like what I talk about, what I don't.
Do you still have that split moment after you post something vulnerable where you're like, ah?
Ooh,
Or is it
no.
no? Wow.
But there are some stories that I have that I haven't shared yet
Mm-hmm.
about things that have happened. And I've never lied. So I just want to say that. If you've ever heard me say something, yes or no, like I don't lie. So I wouldn't do that. But there are a couple of stories that I still have really close to my heart that like I'm really embarrassed about, like really embarrassed. So, and I know it's ego, like I'm very honest. I'm just really egotistical about it, and I don't. And so sharing it, but I will share it. I've told myself I will. I just don't know if I'm ready or not. And it has to be the right moment, the right platform. Look, it's very dramatic for me, right? I'm not even saying it, and I'm just like building mystery around it. And I'm sure that if I said it, everyone would be like, "Oh, that's it." Right? Like we always hype things up in our heads way more than the reality.
Oh, so true. So true. Always the case.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm also wondering right now, I think there's a lot of people who are facing uncertainty in their lives, a lot of people losing their jobs. And so for those people, what would you tell them? you know, they're having this moment where they have to reassess what they need to do with their lives. What would you say to them as someone who's started many businesses and started many things?
As in business or personal, or just as in life in general?
I would say life in general. You know, sometimes it's those moments when you realize that you have so little in your control, you know, like when you lose your job, for instance, or the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic as a whole that's going on. A lot of people feel helpless in the situation.
Yeah.
So when
Well,
you feel bogged down,
I just
what should
saw
you
a
do?
comment. Sorry, someone just said I have had suicide attempts. Um,
Oh, I was
I was
misdiagnosed.
misdiagnosed to be bipolar. Wow, that is heartbreaking. F Esprog 88. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but yeah. So just I want to just quickly address that if that's
Yeah, of
okay.
course.
Definitely seek help. There is no shame, no freaking shame. The mind is just a complex being. It is caged inside a black
Mm,
box. And so we have spent our entire lives teaching our eyes, our nose, our ears to interpret things in a certain way.
mhm.
So there is no freaking shame on that. I just think, it needs to be rewired, and that's going to take time and effort. I pray that you get help. Please, if there's anything I can do, there's actually a company called BetterHelp sponsors Women of Impact episodes, and they are an online service where they help online therapy and things like that. So I would definitely plead for you to get help. Thank you for joining us and watching this as well. And if there's anything that we can do to help, please let us know. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that I addressed that.
No, no. I hope she
Um,
heard that.
yeah. Sorry, I completely forgot your question. What was your question?
My question
Oh,
was for
no, that's
dealing
okay.
with uncertainty and life changes right now, how do we navigate this
Yeah,
period of time?
thank you. So I am a control freak. I am a control freak, but I haven't felt any anxiety over this whatsoever. And the reason being is I acknowledge what I can control and what I can't control, and I fixate on the things I can control.
Mm,
So I don't worry about what is going to happen in the world right now because I can't freaking control it. There's nothing I can actually do that is going to change the world right now. But
hmm.
what can I control? I can control how I show up. I can control how I react to it. I can control how I, keep running my business, how I'm there for my team, how I'm there for myself. Like that's
Hmm.
also important. I'm a massive advocate for all of us to be selfish sometimes. Like
Yeah.
do something that is purely selfish for you so that you can show up for the rest of your team, your family, for whoever. But I really do just go back to kind of how I was talking about the fear. Like the thing that I really struggled with about the fear, about like what is, the uncertainty of the world. It's all up here. It's all like just imagination, right? And our
Hmm.
imagination is running wild with us about how bad this fear is. But if I always bring it down to reality, like that's what I do, bring it to reality, bring it to reality. Okay, if I'm fearful about the world, okay, well, let's get even more. Are you fearful about the world, or are you fearful about how you're going to show up after this quarantine? Like get really real about what you're scared of. If you've lost your job, okay, what are you actually scared of? Are you scared about losing your apartment? Are you scared that you can't feed yourself? Like,
Hmm.
okay, well, what if that becomes real? What are you going to do? If this, then this. Like, I come up with a plan because I'm a control freak. I want to come up with plans. And so
Yeah.
I know that I've thought through the scenarios. And so if I've thought through the scenarios, then how am I going to act in accordance to that? And I think all of us worrying about whether the world is going to be back to normal or not, like I kind of just see it as the great news is it's not going to be normal. Like we are in a new norm. And so trying to look back and be like, I want it to be how it was, I think is I don't think that's going to be realistic. So I'm going to put my time and energy into things that are going to serve me, into things that are going to fuel me, into things that are going to make me feel better about myself, feel better about what I do every day. And so I focus and lean on that. And so planning, like I said, is great for me. Okay, cool. If this happens, then we're going to do this. Um, and then just in general positivity, like I like to think back to anyone that's worried right now, panicking, anxiety, whatever. Think about what it was like in World War II. Think about how scared those women were that their husbands, brothers, fathers were all going off to war. The unknown, the fear, oh my God, what are we going to do? Now you're putting women in jobs they have no clue what they're doing, right? You're putting them in factory jobs, you're putting them in sports that they have no clue what they're doing. And what ended up happening? It was the revolution that women can do shit. It was the revolution that women can play sports. Who knew
Yeah.
that women can do factory jobs, that women can manage, that women can run businesses? So I go back to every time we may be fearful about something, think about how it could be the most amazing thing possible. So all the people that have got anxiety about what the world's going to be like, remind yourself of the women in World War II. Remind yourselves of how that changed the freaking state of the world and women as a, you know, like as a person, how that has changed who I am today, because my mother and my grandmother all were changed by the war. So if we can think about it in a positive way, and we can think about, okay, how can the corona be amazing for all of us?
Yeah.
Open your mind up and let's be open to the beauty that could come when we step out into the, you know, out of our houses again.
Yeah. Oh, I felt that. Ooh, I got like a chill.
Thank you. I'm very passionate about that.
I love it. I think everyone else loved that too. Thank you so much. So I think my last question for you is, what is your why? What is the thing that drives you, and what is the thing that you want to be remembered for when you look back on your life?
My why. So a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on people's why.
Yeah.
And sometimes I actually worry that when people don't have a why, they feel lost, right? Because we're talking about purpose. We're talking about your why,
Passion. Yeah.
passion. People start freaking out. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I don't know what my passion is. And now it's become an extra burden for
Right.
people.
Right.
So in regards to passion, I would say if you don't know your passion, experiment. Like people think, oh God, I'm going to get this wrong. My husband has an amazing phrase, whereas passion isn't a discovery and it's an excavation. So it's like you don't just reveal it and you're like, oh, there's my passion. It becomes like an archaeological dig. It's like you try something, you dig a bit more, and you try a bit more. Oh, I really like this. Then the like turns into the passion, right? Like you have to fuel it.
Yeah.
We don't think about it as kids because we were almost just like, as kids, if you like soccer, you pick up a ball and you keep playing. And then when you've got playtime, you go and you play it more. Then you realize I really like this and you start watching it on TV, right? And so it becomes a passion, but you don't realize your passion has been cultivated since childhood. So now people are in positions where they may not have a passion and everyone panics. The truth is, try stuff. Put a list of 20 different things that you have an interest in and go try it.
Yeah.
So sorry, I kind of derailed a bit. Now back to my why. I think also with the why, this is another thing of like, don't put so much pressure if you don't know what your why is yet. And then also your why may change.
Yes.
Right? Especially if you've gone from, let's just take a single woman for an example. If you've gone from a single woman to you, let's say you find a partner, let's say you have kids, let's say you then move into business, your why is going to change all along the way. So I want to emphasize that any why that I have now doesn't mean that I'm going to hold on to it for the rest of my life. Going back to what I did at Qwest, where I went from fulfillment to our media studio to now impact theory, I make sure I reassess. I make sure I touch base with myself. Lisa, how are you doing? It's been a couple of months since you've actually asked yourself if you're happy. And that is my why. Like, it's so freaking cheesy, but my why is like, what is going to make me happy? Because when I am happy, I can show up. Like I can do the hard things. I will run that marathon in bare feet if I really believe that it's going to make me happy. So I don't know if that's actually a why. But then I go back to, well, does that look like? So take Mother Teresa, for example. Mother Teresa's why was to help people, right? Sure. But do you think she ever would have done that if it didn't bring her happiness and satisfaction?
No, not for a lifetime.
Right. But that's the thing, right? When you're doing it for that long and you're sacrificing that much, even though she was helping people, maybe you can even say that's her why, right? Her why is like she wants to help people. But the truth is, I bet you $1 million deep down, it brought her happiness. It brought her satisfaction. It brought her fulfillment, right? We
Mm-hmm.
use that word a lot, but that is really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
Your why has to be wrapped up in your fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I feel good about helping people, but that isn't my why. Like
Mm-hmm.
helping people isn't my why. It is about feeling good. Okay, if it's feeling good means that helping people, right? So it's kind of like this weird cycle, and I don't know if I'm actually doing a good job articulating it. But I wouldn't do something like if I had a why to help people, let's say, which definitely is what, you know, Tom and I could retire. You know, we could have retired 5 years ago, and that would have been that. But that doesn't interest me. Okay, why doesn't that interest me? Because I wouldn't have been fulfilled. Every single day I wake up, I want to feel fulfillment. I want to follow that why. And so when I think about what I'm doing every day, I go back to I want to help people, you know, and I can put my mother, in fact, as that, like that placeholder, as help people. My mom, since we started Impact Theory, she was